And next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. And it's the dumbest bill in America. And do we have a lead up, Mr. Producer? Of course. Here it is. Dum 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 dum. And it's the dumbest bill in America. And it is sexuality education in elementary school. Let me say that again. Sexuality education in elementary school. Not sex ed, but sexuality education in elementary school. And it's Senate Bill 2584A, introduced by New York State Senator Samra G. Brouk. It requires comprehensive sexuality instruction for grades K to 12, kindergarten to 12, which includes a model curricula for comprehensive sexuality education and, at a minimum, conforms to the content and scope of national sexuality education standards. So you really wanted to know what your children are going to be learning in New York State? Well, here is a great example of that. And this is Samra G. Brouk. She is a state senator in New York. By the way, she was just elected last year. And she is from rural, New York. Now think about that. You're from the rural areas of New York, and you run for office, and you say you're pro-education, and your biggest thing is you want to bring more money to education because children just aren't learning the way they should be. And so what do you decide to do? You decide to, one of your first actions as a state senator, well, you decide to put in a bill that, teaches not sex ed, but sexuality to kindergartners and elementary school students. And so here's what one article says. This is Fox News. New York bill would create comprehensive sexuality education for kindergarten students. Kids in grades kindergarten through 12 would receive comprehensive sexuality education. And it goes on to say, New York State Senator Samra G. Brouk, a Democrat who represents western parts of the state, rural areas, introduced a bill this year that would ensure all pupils receive, as an integral part of education in grades kindergarten through 12, comprehensive sexuality education. Public schools in New York can currently decide for themselves the level of sexual education they want to provide students beyond certain requirements around HIV and AIDS, but this bill would establish a universal curriculum for kids as young as 5 years old. Brouk said the new curriculum would cover issues like healthy relationships, body image, and self-esteem. In kindergarten, quote, that looks like basic lessons about friendship and communication, providing students with building blocks they need to tackle issues like consent and sexual health years later in middle school and high school, but you need to do it now. At older ages, those lessons include health matters, like preventing unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted disease. Well, actually, that's not what the bill does because we've actually read the bill. The bill's teaching them about sexuality in as early ages of K to 5 in elementary school. And this is what her priority is. So, as you might expect, we have a series of clips from good old Senator Samra Brouk, the newly elected state senator in New York. And she's talking about her rural credibility. She represents rural New York, so she's got lots of creds and her passion about education. And this was a clip from last year on News 8 WROC. Here's the clip.
But I really spent a lot of my childhood and still into my adult years down in Bloomfield, in the rural part of our district. And the truth is, even before COVID-19 hit, we were talking about the shortages and the shortfalls for schools. And across the 55th district, outside of even just the city, our schools were owed over $100 million in funding.
So she's talking on this station, right? It's a TV station. And I believe it's in upstate New York, in Western New York. She's talking about how in her area, education has been defunded by the tune of $100 million. And $100 million is obviously a lot of money. And so she says it's really important because we need to at least teach the basics. And so here's News 8 WROC, Rich Funk. He is the interviewer, the newsman. He's following up on the education issue. And listen to what her answer is about education. It's very interesting versus the bill that she put in. We have that clip, and here it is.
You hear critics say, well, we can't just throw more money into it. What specific changes would you like to see if you are going to have the state bail the district out?
Well, I don't call it a bailout. I mean, to be honest with you, what I have seen is that the state in this sense really hasn't lived up to the expectation of what we need just for a sound basic education, which, by the way, is what the New York Constitution says every child deserves. And so
so everybody deserves in the New York Constitution a free and adequate public education. So her point is that at a minimum, we need this money to provide that free and adequate public education. She may or may not be correct. I don't know. But here's the problem. What is the first thing that she did once she got elected? Remember, she just got elected last November. The first thing she did as a state senator in the New York Assembly is to introduce Senate Bill 2584A, which, of course, teaches sexuality education in elementary school. So if you don't have enough money to teach just the basic things in public education from K to 12, you don't have enough money to teach, things that are really important like reading, writing, math, science, and history. You don't have enough money to really properly cover those things. And why is it that the first thing that she did was introduce this bill? Because that's what progressives do. They run based on these things. Well, we want education to be, we just need more money for education. And then they go ahead and they put forth these crazy things. They have no business teaching this. I'm sorry. They have no business teaching this whatsoever in elementary school. I personally don't think it belongs in middle school either. I think that there are different things that you can teach, obviously, but that's just me. I do think that sex ed is important. Of course it is, but that's not what this is, ladies and gentlemen. So don't try that on Facebook or any of the other social media platforms. This is sexuality education. And you and I both know what this is about. This is teaching kindergartners about their sexuality. They don't even know where the door is, where the bathroom is. And this is what they're being taught. And so I just want to read a little bit of this bill to you. So it goes on and it just says, it teaches, among other things, get this, mate partner violence, sexual assault, reproductive and sexual health care, and serving lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth to kindergartners. Such program of comprehensive sexuality instruction shall be reviewed periodically by the commissioner in consultation with the Commissioner of Health, at intervals specified by the commissioner and updated as necessary. So that's just one little tiny part of the bill. The commissioner, it goes on, shall prescribe in regulations such contents and topics to be included in a curriculum of comprehensive sexuality instruction, provided, however, that the curricula need not be uniform throughout the state, and provided further, however, that the school districts shall utilize either a curriculum for comprehensive sexuality education instruction prescribed by the commissioner or curriculum in accordance with the criteria established by the commissioner. So this is just basically saying that your children aren't going to be taught those core courses where that's where the money should be sent. Instead, they're going to pull a little bit more money from that. And the health commissioner is not going to teach your children in kindergarten through 5th grade. And by the way, just read the bill, right? Just read the bill, because I read the bill and this is exactly what it does. So we have a final clip from good old Samra J. Brouk, the state senator who put this bill in. And she's asked the question from News 8 WRC Rich Funk. He asks her, what about a masking mandate? You versus your opponent, because your opponent, that bad Republican, thinks, there shouldn't be a masking mandate. We have this clip, and here it is.
Your opponent was critical of some of the restrictions when it comes to COVID-19 when he was here on Tuesday, and I asked him point blank, do you support the masking mandate out of Albany? And he did not come out in support of that. What is your take on that?
I have to start by saying I am the relative of many nurses. My own brother was on the front lines at local hospitals, and I saw the look on his face the first day he was in the hospital with COVID patients. If not just for that look, you have to understand, you have to be science-backed, you have to be medicine-backed, and understand that masks are a crucial part of keeping us safe. And so if it's not a personal story that you have and that's what's driving you, listen to the science, listen to the doctors, the people who do this for a living, the epidemiologists. They're telling you that this is something that's going to help people stay safe. And to me, it is a small thing that we can do if it means keeping people safe and keeping people alive.
So you support a masking mandate then?
Absolutely.
So she supports a mask mandate in Western New York, right? An incredibly rural area. The mask mandate in New York State, just to be clear, includes a mandate outside. So here you are outside, and you're in rural New York, and you have to wear a mask. So this is what so of course she doesn't make that distinction, right? She says, of course I support a mask mandate, because that is the mask mandate in New York, inside and outside. But we can all talk about, and we can certainly agree that a mask mandate inside makes sense. And certainly it does, I believe, help, okay? But the mask mandate outside in rural areas, just absurd. But she wants a mandate outside for the masks, okay? And then no sooner does she get elected than she puts a mandate in for your children. And I just think that's absolutely fascinating, because she says she's science-based, right? We have to listen to the science. We have to listen to the scientists. We have to look at the data. Has she ever looked at the data of kindergarten students and middle school students about teaching them sexuality education? Where do you think that will go? Because we know what they're going to do, because per the bill, you're going to be taught about, transgender rights and the fact that you really may not be a boy, you're really a girl stuck in the other gender's body. I mean, this is part of what is being taught and what will be taught in New York schools, ladies and gentlemen. You know it as well as I do. By all means, look up Senate Bill 2584A and read it. It's quite a read, right? It's dictating to all of the school systems what should be taught. And this is someone who says she represents rural New York, right? I'm sorry, rural New York would not support this ever. And why would it be her first priority anyway? It just doesn't make sense to me. Look, we need to take our country back. And my personal opinion is the best thing to do, if you can afford it, and I know it's easy for me to say, is to take your children, if you're in that state and this bill does pass, take your children out of public school, certainly out of the elementary portion of public school, and put them in private school, at least from K to 5, because that way you can avoid having your child indoctrinated, whereby one day your child may come home in 5th grade and say, hey, mommy and daddy, the teacher said I might actually be a different gender, and then now you've got a problem, right? The indoctrination that your child has had for 5 or 6 years has to be reversed, because this is who the left really is. I don't understand why they're doing this so early, okay? I don't understand why they think this is appropriate, but they do think it's appropriate nonetheless. That is the dumbest bill in America, sexuality education in elementary school.